What's up, everybody? You're listening to WKNC 88.1 FM, HD1 Raleigh. We're a student-run radio station based out of North Carolina State University. I'm Lachlan Vester, and this is Off the Record. Here with me today is a local group named Ajena. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi guys, I'm Isabella, and I am the singer of Ajena.
Yo, what's up? I'm Lucas, or DJ Mucus, depending on who's asking, and I'm the drummer of Ajena.
This is Quinn. I'm a guitarist, mostly rhythm, for Ajena.
Yo, I'm Hannah. I'm the lead guitarist of Ajena.
Hi, I'm Luca. I'm the bassist of Ajena.
Now that you guys have introduced yourselves, where are you guys from?
I was personally born and raised in Miami, Florida, Broward County, unfortunately. But I moved to Charlotte in 2019, and I do call it my home. But nowadays, I feel like Raleigh is more of a home than anything else.
Yeah, I'm from a small town called Roseville. If you've heard of it, you've heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, which you probably haven't, then I guess you haven't heard of it. But it's close enough to Raleigh that I just most times say I'm from Raleigh anyways.
I'm from Raleigh, born and raised right by NC State campus, born in Rex Hospital, and my address is...
I was born in Fayetteville, but I've spent most of my life abroad in Korea.
I was born in Virginia, like an hour outside of Roanoke, but moved to North Carolina in 2013 to Huntersville, which is like 30 minutes north of Charlotte, but now I live in Raleigh.
Okay, so how long have you guys been making music? Is that like something you've always done, or have you picked it up recently as you've moved into like Raleigh in that area, or?
Well, funnily enough, the band was my first experience with performing and writing and singing music and just being within the music scene at all. I think my other bandmates are more professional when it comes to making music and understanding music, like way more than me, honestly, which is kind of crazy.
You go ahead.
I've picked up the guitar and other instruments starting when I was like really young, actually. But I've started taking music like seriously at probably 13. I was bored just like writing songs by myself in my room, like just like a depressed teenager. So I guess that's where it started for me.
I also started doing music pretty young. I started on the violin when I was 5 and just like learned a new instrument every few years. Now I teach music and I'm part of the band and stuff. And it's really fun. So, I don't know, 12 years? Nope, 14 years. I know how to do math.
I've been playing guitar since I was maybe 7 or 8. And then when I was in middle school, I got into like music production. So like not just like beat making, but also like mixing and stuff. And that's kind of carried through. So
That's very
it's
true.
been a while. It's been a while.
Quinn is an Ableton wizard.
I am.
Indeed.
I'm gonna be a. I can't remember the word. I'm gonna stan Ableton. That's not the right word. I don't like that word. And I'm gonna slam FL Studio.
Oh.
I hate Fruity Loops.
FL Studio has a terrible interface. I strongly dislike it.
I've basically been into it since I was a little kid. I was raised on like Rock Band and Guitar Hero and that kind of stuff. So like since I was like 5, I've been playing quote unquote playing drums. But I didn't actually pick up an actual instrument until like a few years ago. I think it was like junior year of high school. I started playing drums. And then I've been playing ever since. And I started picking up guitar a little bit recently too. So maybe like 3 or 4 years, I would say.
All right, so how did this all start?
Oh my gosh. I think
Bella posted an Instagram story.
Yeah.
Well, before that, I think my roommate and I, Hannah, we're roommates, we live together. I think we were sitting in the living room in our dorm in Wolf Village apartment.
And you had brought your guitar. And before that, like I had never like told anybody like in college that I had met that like I had ever played guitar. And I think you heard me playing like just in the living room one day. And I think we were just like mutually like, dude, let's start a band.
Yeah.
Our identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, I came out of nowhere. And then we were like, okay, how do we find people? Because none of our friends were at the time musically inclined. Honestly, I wasn't really musically inclined either. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to post a meme on my Instagram story. So I quite literally posted a meme of, like, the Uncle Sam pointing, like, I want you to join the army or whatever meme. I posted that and edited it. And I said, I want you to join my redacted college band. It's just a word for bad college band. And I don't know how, but people responded to it and they were like, I would like to be in your horrible college band. And I was like, that's awesome. And then we set up our first rehearsal and it was very funny.
I remember seeing that story, and we had lunch together literally one time with a group of friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Sure.
Yeah.
I was looking for like people to start a band with for the entire first semester, and I had no luck. Aside from Quinn, like he and I were hanging out, but
Hi.
like, yeah, we weren't like a band. We were just like two guys like hashing it out. And so then I saw Bella posted, and it was like a message from the heavens, bro. It was like finally like someone to start a band with.
I joined actually last minute. We had a member of another current band, multiple other current bands, was a member of the band long before I was, and then they
Maybe
dropped
3
out.
weeks.
Yeah, maybe 3 weeks, and then they seemingly dropped out. Less than a month before the first show.
Actually, it was
About
A few weeks.
a few weeks
A
before
few
our
weeks
first
before the
show,
first show.
one of the guitarists dropped out.
And so Lucas hit me up, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to join a band?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I do." And I showed up, and I was terrified because I've never played like live or like for anyone. I always just do on my own. So I was like, "What's going on?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, you've got like 2 or 3 weeks to learn these songs, and we've got a show." And I'm like, "Okay, awesome,
But you did awesome.
thank
Exactly.
you."
Amazing.
I think that show went really well for a first show.
Yeah,
I
no, we
agree.
learned like 30 minutes of music in like 2 weeks, which
Yeah.
isn't that hard on paper, but as like coordinating 5
people
people.
who are
Only
new
being
to
able
it.
to see each other once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So where'd you guys get the name Ajena?
I guess it started off just like brainstorming names in the living room. We actually like went online and then looked up a band name generator, and we had some crazy things come up. Like I remember one of them was like called Bikini of the Friendly Julio, and we were actually about to go with that. Like for like a couple days, we were like, yeah, we are the bikinis of the Friendly Julios. But then we realized that would be a bit too long, especially to like make merch or like brand. So
First
Yeah.
album name though.
yeah, no,
Ooh.
exactly.
Wait. No, but yeah,
Right.
basically everything online was very dubious.
But then we thought of like shorter names, and then Bella, you like the concept of like something that doesn't have a direct translation to English, which is where Ajena comes in. Do you want to explain
Yeah,
that?
well, I'm in English. I'm an English major, and I've always been into language. And I took a linguistics course, and there's a lot of words that exist in other languages that just don't have a direct like 1, 2, 3 word translation. And the word ajena is one of those. In the masculine form, which is the most common form, it's ajeno, but it means like something that does not belong to you or that someone else's. But the root word itself is from like the word for alien in English. So the most common use of it would to be like describing like someone else's shirt or someone else's woman. There's a lot of songs called like mujer ajena, which means like the other woman in like the cheating context. So it's a very multifaceted word with a lot of different meanings. It's actually in quite a lot of music, like in my own kind of like my mom would listen to a lot of, I guess, like reggaeton and like Latin music, and it's a common word in that scope of things. But we haven't ever really, well, I haven't really ever seen too many like Spanish named punk bands or rock bands in the US in particular. So I thought, well, it's a cool word and it would be really unique. I don't think anyone else has named that. I actually went on Google and I typed in Ajena rock, Ajena band, nothing. So it just kind of came to me and we were like, well, we want to be something that's not easily defined, something that's not easily contained. And actually a fan made merch of our logo and our name. They put like Ajena, our logo, and said not from here. And that was really cool. So that something captures a lot of things.
Shout out.
Shout out that person.
Whoever you are, I don't know who you are.
That's crazy that someone that we don't know.
We don't know who you are. If you hear this, please reveal yourself. That was so cool.
So now I know you said that you don't want to be defined and all that, but if you had to define yourself as a genre and as a sound, how would
boy.
you?
Yeah. Oh wait,
we had
we,
like a 2 or 3 hour conversation
Yeah.
about this.
we
on
did. I
multiple
think
occasions.
we all kind of just after making our own music, we're like, yeah, we're a punk band. Like
Punk is the easy because punk is such a broad.
Exactly.
Like a nice umbrella
term.
term.
yeah, definitely not shoegaze, definitely not emo. Like I think punk is just the easiest way to describe. Well, I think also beyond just like musicality and sound, like punk is what we want to embody. Like there's
Yeah.
just like an
I mean-
element of like resistance and like
Yeah.
I guess like activism that we want
Yeah.
to portray in our music.
And, the DIY elements.
Yeah.
Of how we do everything. all that kind of stuff.
That's very important to us. Yeah.
All right, so you said like as you start writing your own music, are you planning any sort of releases? Is that a loaded question? I guess I should
It's
say.
not loaded. Don't worry.
Okay.
We've slowly been putting together like a few songs at a time. We're actually working on our second.
Third. Well, we have
Third.
3 kind of done, but we have like yeah. I guess
Putting it together.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the goal, or maybe not goal, but like the dream
Idea.
is to have something hopefully out by the end of the year, like an EP or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on it, trying to make our schedules line up to write stuff and then figure out recording and all of that.
And is that going to be Quinn doing the mix?
Honestly, I mean, I'd like to. I've only recently been learning how to mix things, but I've mixed some stuff recently actually for the I don't know that it's out yet, but there's an episode of The Lounge, and I did some mixing for a couple songs, which was a bit of a pain because the microphone for the vocals picked up everything else more than the vocals, which was fun to deal with. But no, I think I would like to at least give it a shot. We know other people that can do it more professionally, but I think I have what it takes because we're a punk band. It doesn't need to be like squeaky clean and pristine, as long as it sounds pretty good. Yeah,
Exactly. I think we're trying to just kind of like bingo bongo mash things together and then hopefully get someone good to master it.
Not everything's perfect, but we're trying to aim for that kind of sound anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be like our first release, but I've been trying to say that maybe for like fun, we just released like some crappy demo tapes that's like not, recorded well or mixed or mastered. We just kind of like put some microphones up in a garage and just like hash it out, and then just there we go.
Exactly.
And so when you are writing music, what does that process sort of look like? Is it collaborative? Is it one person doing a lot of the writing and bringing it to the band? Are you writing your lyrics first? Like what does that process look like?
So the process usually starts off with guitar. It's, me or Quinn, we usually think of a riff and then we'll get together and then we'll kind of create a rhythm part and then a lead part and then a couple solos sprinkled in there, and then we'll start to bring in bass and then the other rhythm sections, and then usually last it's vocals. But we've been running into some challenges where like the instrumental parts we'll have to leave some space so that the vocals do have like a chance to shine through. Belle, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think most bands, I'm just assuming, write this way where it's like guitar first, then bass and drums, then all together, and then finally after that the vocals. Like it's very rarely like the other way around. I think it's just easier that way. But yeah, I think it's hard to mentally leave space for non-existent vocals when you're making a song because they're not
tricky to do that
because they're not there. Yeah,
And
but
not just leaving space time-wise, but also leaving space like in a sound way so it doesn't get too busy before we decided we want to keep stuff. I don't know if simpler is the right word, but we don't want to crowd it.
yeah, big
It's
time.
just like Quinn and I always like want to play some like crazy stuff that's always like super fast, and like Lucas is always like doing some crazy like time signature on the drums, and like it's just very like complicated at times, but we always manage to work through it.
Yeah, we do. I think something that a lot of other bands do that I think we could at least try, and not for everything, but a lot of times bands will have like someone would be like, oh, I wrote not maybe a full song, but like here's a part that's these chords and these lyrics, and then go from there. Or, oh, I had this idea for a drum beat that goes with this chorus that I wrote. And then like rather than just like here's this one riff, but like here's kind of the concept for a full song. Or I don't know, I think that might make it a little bit easier rather than having everyone piece a thing. Like here's a kind of like a basic template of this song that then we can all go and tweak and change, like that kind of thing.
I feel like our songs so far are not very similar to the original that we did months and months ago.
Oh gosh.
It ends up changing so much.
Yeah, I think we do have a very like we go from like 0 to 100. Like we literally build the song like piece by piece individually. And like for my part, like I don't have to wait, but I do willingly wait for the whole like instrumental piece to be finished, and then like I'll write my own melodies and my own lyrics, and then somehow it sounds good in the end.
Yeah, I do think it would be nice going forward to have like I don't know how difficult it would be, but to have vocals written at the same time as other things, like, you know, if you've got a hook for a vocal hook, it could be good to, I don't know, write around that and focus on that, because there's a lot of like music that does that kind of thing.
So who would you say, who or what inspires you guys the most when you're writing?
We actually had this conversation a few weeks ago. We each had a homework assignment. It was to make a Spotify playlist to list our top like inspirations in terms of like music, and we each came up with one Spotify playlist. We each like looked through everyone's playlists, so we could have a better idea of like what sound we want to produce, so that like we kind of have like a cohesive sound. And I think our biggest inspirations come from, well, I'll say Mannequin Redacted. Yeah.
Mannequin Redacted, P word.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, well, as a person who like kind of had the first ideas with Hannah, we really wanted to be inspired by like femme punk and like Riot Girl sounds, but not all the way in that genre direction. As it's wonderful, and I'm very inspired by Riot Girl, but I don't want to be limited to that. But in that same sense, I think we're very inspired by like Daisy and the Scouts, Mannequin P word, Bikini Kill, but also we take a lot of inspiration from like emo bands. Like we all really like Title Fight, we all really like Roswell Kid, and we just want to take all the good parts from all these genres that we admire and kind of make it one cool, good sounding thing.
I think I'm gonna name drop another band that I think is a really big inspiration for us, and we play mainly because we play one of their songs. But Pink Shift, I think, has a sound
I was gonna say that too.
that is really close. Is really close to the sound that we kind of are going for.
And Julie too. We
Julie
actually
really
like
good.
take like their chord progressions and like think of them while we're writing our songs.
Yeah. Julie's like shoegaze if it wasn't boring.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a lot of people mad.
No, we love
They're gonna cancel
shoegaze.
you.
Do we?
I love shoegaze. It's just like really expensive.
True,
pedals.
actually, yeah.
Yeah. We're anti-pet. No, I'm kidding.
No,
I'm a big fan of Babes in Toyland, so that's where a lot of my inspiration for my
Yes.
drumming comes from. So even if the song that we're writing is not like Babes in Toyland-esque, I will go out of my way to add a little Babes in Toyland flair in them because I really like how it sounds.
So I've asked you guys a lot of questions about your inspiration and what inspires you. And the last one I have on that sort of train of thought is, how has North Carolina and like the Raleigh scene specifically inspired you and kind of helped build your sound and presence and all of that?
Well, I can speak for Bella and I. Since we were freshmen, we've been going to like local house shows every weekend, and we've seen so many house venues come up and then die out. And I think we've always kept in the back of our heads what sounds good in terms of music and like what looks good in terms of stage presence. I think that's where personally we draw a lot of inspiration from, especially for our band.
Yeah. I mean, to add on to that, I feel like because of the band and because of like I used to do like more non-musical things in the scene. Like I would do like videography and photography for local bands, and I've made so many friends, not just in Raleigh but also in Charlotte, because I love going to the Milestone. I love going to house shows, and I think I feel very grateful for like the community that we have in North Carolina. I feel like it's very special. Actually, I listened to like I think of a podcast from like it was someone interviewing Blank State and Faye from that band. They were talking about how like North Carolina is so special that we have so many cities with so many vibrant scenes, like Raleigh, Charlotte, Wilmington, Greensboro, Winston, like all these different cities that are like an hour and a half, 2 hours from one another, but just equally as vibrant and strong DIY scenes. And like we've played with bands, like I've made friends who live in Wilmington, who live in Charlotte, live in Greensboro, and we're all just, we had this connection with music, and it's beautiful.
It's kind of like one really big scene as opposed to a bunch of things, because all of the like outside of Asheville, which is honestly like its own thing, everything is kind of like within 2.5 hours from something
if you really
else.
want to go to a show, you can make an afternoon trip.
I did drive out all the way to Charlotte over the summer to the Milestone just to go see Jer and Banks and who else was there? Blank State. It was a great show. Yeah, one of the things for me, I would say, is since North Carolina is such like a hardcore heavy state, Thank you, COC. One of the things for me is actually trying to like distance myself from that. Not because I don't like it, but just because I like doing things that like are different and stand out. So like I'll take inspiration from like that kind of drumming and then seeing how I can warp it into something that's like similar and has the roots, but is very distinct and kind of, adds a sense of like refreshingness into our sound that you might not hear elsewhere, I suppose.
Yeah, actually to add on to that, I was just thinking about how like there's so many really cool hardcore bands and like just like heavy bands in North Carolina, and we're not hardcore or heavy by any means, but I love like taking like bits and pieces from how they write and how they perform and like adding that into our own performance.
Mm-hmm.
So getting on to kind of the performing side of things, how would you describe that feeling of stepping onto the stage? Because you were talking about going from being freshmen, going to shows and kind of experiencing it from the other side. How does it compare to being up there? You're the one with all the eyes on you.
The first time that we ever did it, which super small, like you could barely even call it a show. We were at the corner on Centennial campus of NC State University. I was so nervous. I was like horribly shaking, which I hadn't even had any caffeine. It was just pure like nerves. You would think I was on drugs or something. It was crazy. But over time, I've actually gotten a lot more used to it. And so I'm definitely still like anxious and nervous going on stage. But I find more now that a lot of my like shakiness and nervousness comes from just like pure excitement and like joy to play music rather than being scared of like, oh, I'm going to mess up or whatever. And then once I get on stage, it's so strange. Like you just enter a flow state.
Like a trance.
Yeah.
It's like the adrenaline.
And then for me, like as the drummer, I'm dying up there because it's really hot and I'm super sweaty. So I don't even know what's going on. I can't see anything. I'm like super thirsty. And then next thing I know, like our set's over.
Yeah, for me, this is a lot different than anything I'd ever done before. I have a mostly classical background, so like all suit and tie tux kind of stuff, very formal. Like this person walks on stage, this person walks on stage. We wait 7.5 seconds, but this feels a lot more freeing. I think like we have more space to move around. We can dance, we can interact with people. It doesn't have to be we're sitting up straight and playing this in order. Like I don't know. I like it a lot. I like both, but I like it a lot.
I think, well, for me as I guess front person, front woman, I guess naturally like all of the eyes gravitate towards me because I'm literally like I'm in the front. Like I'm like, hey guys, and I have zero background in stage and performance and music. I learned how to sing for the band. I learned how to play guitar 7 months ago, and like I think I can agree with Lucas where it's just like you get on there and your heart is racing and you're shaking, but then once it's happening, it's just kind of happening. You have to just kind of go with it no matter what goes wrong. Even more so like with DIY, a lot of things go wrong. Like our second show, my mic completely cut out for a song, and no one knows no one knows what's happening. We don't have monitors, we don't have in-ears. You have to just keep going with it.
Yeah.
I also struggle a little bit with anxiety, especially when we were playing our first couple of shows. I would get super nervous and just like sweaty and clammy before getting on stage, and I would be shaking and I'd mess up all the time. But something that's helped me weirdly is listening to Ken Carson, just like blasting it in my headphones before I get up on stage. It just like hypes me up. So I think having a good playlist definitely like helps ease my nerves. But also like once I get up on stage, I make sure to look around, especially to Quinn, and just like nod, like making sure all of our strings are like in tune.
Oh
That's a big
God!
We always
Oh,
make sure
my.
we're in tune before,
Yes.
like we give each other 5 thumbs up. I think.
It just always like helps ground me, knowing that like my friends are like around me and we're like in this together.
Yeah, I feel like the first show I was really nervous because I'd never really been on stage before, period, for anything other than like maybe elementary school, like plays and stuff. But I don't know. After that show, I was just kind of like, if something goes wrong, who cares? We're a punk band. It's the DIY scene. It's indie music. It's whatever. And I've kind of dropped most of my nerves, and I genuinely like I have really bad anxiety in general and social anxiety, but for some reason I don't have any anymore for being on like going up there and being on stage, it all goes away because I go into a mode of like just locked in, like full productivity mode. So like
Locked
I
in
couldn't
Larry.
care
Locked in
less about
Larry.
being nervous or about being perceived because all I care about is like making sure things go smoothly. And then the second I step off stage, I'm like, oh no, I'm surrounded by people. And then I get nervous again.
Well, that's a huge thing. Every person I meet, no matter how big their band is, like in the local scene, like after every show, like they'll play perfect. I'm like, that was horrible. I sucked. That was horrible. Like I talked to like my friend JT from Moving Boxes and Jackson from Infinity, and like after my show, I was like, oh my, that was horrible, guys. That was horrible. And they were like, you need to stop saying that and just calm down. Like just you need to stop because everyone thinks like that. Everyone thinks they did horrible.
Everyone in the scene is also just really nice.
That
Like,
too.
You'd
Yeah,
think-
like I think people are really quick to affirm each other and say,
Yeah.
no, you didn't play bad. Like, what are you talking about?
It definitely helps a lot when you're playing. Like, you'll play the first song, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, that was the worst I've ever played that song in my entire life. But then, like, the whole crowd is still cheering after we're done. So I'm like, oh, it can't be that bad. And then we start the next song, and, like, the crowd starts going crazy and dancing. And I'm like, all right, like, things are all right. Like, this is awesome. Like, everybody's dancing, having a good time. This is great.
Out of the songs that you play live, which one is your favorite?
So the first one would be My Own Summer, Shove It by Deftones. Purely because, well, A, it's a really good song, but it's not like the most interesting to play. But when you play it, like you see everybody's face in the crowd light up. And we did play this
Yeah.
one show recently, which like normally the crowd goes like pretty crazy for the show for that song. But we played this one show at Merwin House, and I didn't even finish the intro fill. Like I had just barely tapped the snare, and like the entire crowd was all over us.
Literally, everyone except Lucas got pushed to the floor.
It was
during
horrifying.
the
Yeah.
song.
Someone stepped on like 3 of my pedals on my pedal board. And, like, someone turned on my like reverb and my octave, switched the channel on my amp, so I was playing in like a clean. Like it was interesting.
Yeah, I was like, this is like the coolest thing ever. This is my,
Yeah.
bandmates who got pushed around might have thought different, but I was like, this is so cool. And then my favorite song to like actually play on the drums on our set list right now would have to be I Threw Glass at My Friend's Eye and Now I'm on Probation, because it's super fast, like just
Yeah.
stupid, like blazing fast. It hurts to play. And then I play it faster than it normally is, so that makes it even worse,
Oh
but it's
my
like
gosh.
so much fun. So I really enjoyed that one, just the energy and like the raw like power of it. And then my third favorite would be Decepticon by Le Tigre, just because it's kind of fun to do our like see you later for the end of our set.
Yeah.
And we do play that song so different from the studio recording by Le Tigre, just like a lot more energy and like angrier almost, for as angry as you can get for that song. 'Cause it's really fun.
I'd say for me, I've got two. I really like the Pink Shift song we do, I'm Not Crying, You're Crying. We do this fun lead-in thing where the bass starts while Bella's still talking, then we add guitar over it, and then we go right into it without any break between the speaking and the playing.
Exposing our secrets.
Sorry.
I can't know.
Come to our shows and you'll see what it's really like.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a ton of fun. And then also Decepticon by Le Tigre for me, because that was the first song we like ever learned together, and that's just special to me. And also, it's so much fun to do the "See You Later" bit at the end.
I'm gonna say my favorite song to play, like number one right now, is probably "You Can't Eat Cats, Kevin" by Mom
Yes!
Jeans.
That's what I was
It's
gonna
such
say,
a
that's what I was
nice
gonna say.
break in between the songs in the set list because it is a math rock song. It is like
It's
Midwest.
not a math rock.
Well, it's
song.
like
Uh,
it isn't 4/4.
okay, whatever.
It's
But
fun.
it's like Midwest emo-y. It's a little bit.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit different from all our other like metal like punk songs, and I'm really proud of it as well because I remember when we were first learning it, I could not find accurate tabs online, so I had to learn the entire thing by ear. So, yeah, You Can't Eat Cats, Kevin. Shout out.
I think of. Oh, sorry. Were you gonna say something?
It might be really funny to say, but out of our set list, that is one of the harder songs
my
to play
gosh,
for
yeah.
me. Even
Me
though it's
too.
not like a punk song or anything, like it's
the
just
timing.
it's really fast, and then there's some parts where it gets a little bit more technical and a bit more precise on the kit, and it's harder to keep up with when you're tired and playing the song way faster than normal because you're like high on adrenaline or
Wait,
whatever.
You can't see.
Yeah,
You're blind.
but it is a really fun song to play.
I really like playing that song because like I like the other stuff that we play, but for me with music, what really like I don't know is the intrigue is like I don't want to say emo music because that's not what I mean, but like music that in its chords and melodies has like emotion baked in. I can't describe it with words, but it's like a feeling, and that song does that feeling really well. And just playing it is, and especially the parts where like Hannah and I are synced up with our guitars playing like adjacent things but octaves apart or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool feeling being like playing a thing that on its own wouldn't sound like much, but being with a whole band of people, it's a whole thing. It's like the feeling of friendship and trust I have in the people. And but also definitely my favorite song to play is our original that we've been playing, Bite. I think just in terms of like there's the difference between playing a cover and playing a song that we wrote. It's a special feeling.
Yeah, I think well, I'm the only one saying this, but I love playing Romantic by Mannequin.
Ooh.
P word. Can't say it. I actually did see them live recently at the Turnstile concert, and they played Romantic, and it was incredible. And I was like, wow, that's me. But I just love that song. I love the band, but I just love like that song has a lot of bits where I'm just screaming. Like I'm just literally screaming.
That's probably number 2 for covers for me.
Yeah, I think like the first few times I played it, like I'm actually I am new to singing. I'm not very confident, and then let alone like screaming as a whole other facet of vocals is just like crazy. But like the first few times I nailed like the screaming parts. I think like Hannah and I like exchanged eye contact, and she was like, "Oh my god." So now I've like again like back to the thing where like I'm taking inspiration from like more harder, heavier genres. I do want to incorporate more like screamo elements to my own vocals, and I love playing that song. I love just getting on stage and literally like rolling around and like belting and screaming and howling, and everyone just loves it. It's phenomenal.
So, out of all the venues that you've played, which one's been your favorite?
Easily for me, Chapel of Bones. That was so cool for me because like it was a real stage, real sound system. We had monitors.
Yeah.
It was packed, like literally sold out.
400 people.
Door out, like line out the door. That was just astonishing to me.
That was
Even
really cool.
having played in like big concert halls for orchestra and stuff, it's so different when it's a smaller group as a band and you can like make eye contact with everybody who's in the front row in front of you. It was
also,
so
like,
cool.
Body to body as opposed to like people in seats or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
I think for me, it's a tie between Merwin House and Dan Allen Parking Deck, which
Oh,
technically
wow.
is not a venue, but we did play there one time.
It was
That
for one night.
Really
Yes,
fun.
it was great. It was outdoors. Like, was it hot that day?
Oh, it was hot. I was
Yeah.
sweating. I
But we
was
could
sweating.
like see everybody like in front of us, and like everyone was moshing. It just had like such great energy. Both of the venues actually had really great energy, and I think those two are my favorites because I met the coolest people there, and it just had like the best like mosh pit of all time.
I don't know. I think playing Neptunes for me was very special because like I've been to so many shows there and I've just known of the place for so long. It was like Chapel of Bones was really cool, but Neptunes was like, whoa. I'd also never seen it as full as it was when we were playing. Which
I
was cool.
know.
But by far the most fun I've had at a show was playing Merwin House just because of how insane the experience was. It was just like the venue aside. Also, we sounded good. Like the actual mix in Merwin House, from what I've been told, is better than any other place we've been to.
For some reason.
Well, probably because I don't know. I think there was probably some built-in like compression to whatever vocal PA thing they had, which suits your voice really well, and so people could actually hear you, which was I think that adds a lot.
I again, hard to choose just one, and I hate to pair at my friends here, but yeah, when we played Chapel of Bones, that was like the first show where it was like holy crap, like we've made it. Because when I was like a couple years ago, like I really want to join a band and like play music. Like my whole thing, my dream was like I just want to play a show at like an established venue downtown, and so playing at Chapel of Bones on a stage with a PA system with
And
a
a
fog
green room?
machine
And
a green.
monitors.
They gave
my
us
gosh.
sandwiches and donuts in the green room, and it was
Awesome.
so good. And it was like I was like, this is the best show ever. Like I
5 donuts.
yeah, I was like this is it. And then
made
Neptune's,
it.
yeah, seriously. Same with Quinn. Like I go there a lot for shows and stuff, and it's really just such a nice like intimate venue, and I feel like it's a really important local spot for musicians to meet, or even just like anybody to enjoy music or anything like that. So that's also one of my favorites. And then again, yeah, the pit at Merwin House was insane. All the vibes at Merwin House were just spot on. That place is really cool, and I would love to play there again for sure.
Yeah, I'm also gonna have to go with Merwin House. Like I think unlike our other shows where I kind of just felt like scared and like possibly helpless and weak and like feeble, for some reason I think everyone at Merwin House was just so alive.
We're all very welcoming.
Everybody
Yeah,
was so
that too.
welcoming.
Everyone was nice, but it was just so alive. And allegedly, according to the person who runs it, Adam, like he told us that like he asked people like who they were here for, and most people said they were here for us. And the house like went beyond capacity
Way
and
beyond.
like way like it was like I think it was
People were
historical.
spilling out of the doors.
Yeah, I
and,
think
like,
it was
hanging out in
like
the
the
backyard.
venue's largest show ever, which was crazy for us to hear because like we're a small band, we're so new. But like literally at that show, like I think there's a few pictures of me. Like I felt like I was like commanding an army. Like there's literally like photos of me like raising my mic up and like making people like making
That
them
picture's
shout.
So cool with the mic
Yeah,
up.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was like making people in the audience like do the work for me, which was great because I was very tired. But like again, like Lucas during Shove It, you know, I'm just there, I'm just screaming, and people are literally like killing each other in the mosh pit. I mean, actually, like someone shoved me so hard, like my spine cracked against the drum kit, and I think like I have like a permanent bruise. But you know,
It was scary a little bit.
it was a little bit scary, but in the moment, you're just like, this is awesome, bro.
The adrenaline, you don't feel it. You're just like, I gotta get up. I gotta keep
Yeah,
going.
I got punched so hard, like I literally like had the breath knocked out of me, which is horrible when you're a singer. So I was like singing and I went into the mic, but it was incredible, and everyone was so kind. All other bands were really, really nice.
I remember in one of the videos you could actually hear my guitar like almost snap one of the strings because somebody slammed into me so hard.
Dude,
He
yeah.
apologized after though, so it's all good.
That's what I mean. Like they'll hurt you, but they're like, I'm so sorry. Like, do you need help
Yeah.
getting up?
No, I literally. Oh, sorry. You gonna say something? I was gonna say I literally like when we played our original song and for the rest of the set, I like first strum I snapped a string, and just the energy like after the show, or like after the song. I don't know. I think you said in the mic you were like, oh yeah, and our guitarist snapped a string, and I held my guitar up and everybody cheered.
Everyone cheered.
And I was like, that was such a good feeling. And I played the rest of the show, and like I didn't care that I was down a string because it was just
Yeah.
such a fun.
It was just so like
experience.
feral, like in a
Yeah.
good way. It was just like because that's the point of music on like house shows and going to these shows. It's like everyone's in like has their own problem. Everyone's angry, everyone's upset, and like they go to these shows and they sing and they dance and push each other and possibly also crowd kill.
Yeah,
and that's
then
the point.
everybody's so respectful though. At the same time.
That's the important thing, not like deliberately
They
like.
do crazy stuff, but they will help you if you get hurt. and
Exactly.
apologize for it.
That's the beauty
Yeah.
of it. That's why I love DIY.
It felt like that one video, if anybody's seen it, of this band called No Justice playing their last show in DC. And if you've seen it, you know, because it's that one video where they're on stage, they're not even playing yet. As soon as they start their first song, 10 people climb up on stage and just dismantle the drummer's drum kit and start chucking it into the crowd. That's kind of what Merwin House felt like. And it was like so many people in there. Like you walk into the house and it's like 5 degrees hotter. It was just insane.
All right. Well, I want to thank my guest, Ajena from Raleigh. This has been Lachlan Vester for WKNC. You can check out my other interviews with local artists by visiting wknc.org/podcast and clicking on Off the Record. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you next time.